Public Works Director. He'll be with us for a few months as we review the applications for permanent fillings. And two of your selectmen, Chairman John Kaplis and Vice Chairman Cameron Forts, are with us here this evening. So what I wanted to do here, and once we get through this, we'll have some questions and answers. And again, I would just ask that we go one at a time. Please stand, give your name, just so we can kind of try to keep track. And we'll be happy to stay with you as long as it's proving productive. So accepted roads are where the town has a historic right-of-way or a deed, or there's been a vote of town meeting to actually accept the road. Unaccepted roads, the road is owned by the abutting owners generally, or the developer. Depends upon the deeds, depends on whether or not it came out of subdivisions. It's often referred to as private ways, though the lawyer can tell you in more ways than I can, there are differences between those. For unaccepted roads, the municipality has no legal obligation to these, but the Commonwealth has spelled out in a couple different sections certain rights that the town can accept if it wants to the maintenance, repair, or upgrading of unaccepted ways. So just for giggles, no pun intended, I Googled unaccepted streets in Massachusetts, got over 100,000 hits. It's of no comfort to you, but you're not alone. The state estimates that almost 10% of the highway road mileage in the state is unaccepted roads. In Wilmington, Mass, as one example, they have 30 miles of such roadways. In Leominster, they were studying this, trying to come up with some solutions. They came up with 227 private roads. And if you Google that phrase, you're going to find many, many other discussions, town by town by town. Even to the point where some roads, towns have created separate standards for older, unaccepted roads that predated subdivision. So they have lesser standards, E standards. Generally, that has to do with the right-of-way, the amount of land that's needed. It does not generally deviate the quality of construction that's required. So if you'll remember from when we met, I took away some homework. First was to talk with the assessing. There is no specific deduct in their CAMA, which is a mass appraisal system that they use if the houses are on an unaccepted street. Basically, they go by what the houses are selling for in that particular neighborhood and the assessing district. And a quick review of the records does show that the sales in there have been above the assessed pricing. Also, I said I would reach out to the builder. I've already forgotten his name, I forget, but I can look that up in a moment here. The house at the bottom of the loop has been sold. Strike that. It's under contract. Hasn't actually closed at this point. He either didn't remember or didn't want to share with me the exact selling price, but he described it as upper 200s. He has no plan to repair the roadway. He did say that he didn't, and this is a quote from him, he didn't mind paying for some of the labor if others want to pay for some millings. So if there's a plan to repair some areas with millings, if some of the neighbors got together, reach out to him, I have his contact information, he would provide some labor to assist in doing that. Can I get you to, there you go, thanks.
You need to get the microphone or what?
So first, let's deal with
Excuse me, I'm gonna go over there.
the snow and ice. I put this question to town council. I had a very strict construction of the statute, a very strict interpretation. Town council advises that arguably removing the sand deposited as part of the snow and ice removal program is sufficiently related to the program to qualify as an authorized activity. And he's available to ask questions at the end. If we can, I'd like to hold them all till the end. So we will sweep the road when and where we can. There are areas that have been rutted out and potholed to the point where they'll have to skip over them because it would damage the machine. Did that get done in the last day or two, some of that sweeping?
Sweeping was done last week.
Okay. So based upon town council's advice, we'll continue to do that. The question I next posed to town council, and comes right out of the memo that I sent to him, to what extent, if any, does the town have liability for the failure to move the subdivision road forward to a vote by town meeting of its acceptance as a public way, or a failure to notify the residents of such inaction? His answer is that the town has no liability. The decision as to whether or not to lay out a road, whether or not to ask the town meeting to accept it, is solely within the province of the select board. Now, let me just say that I do think that select board in '05 and '06 would have been well served to notify the neighborhood, have a meeting like this, to talk with them about why they weren't moving it forward. Because the files are pretty well documented with concerns about the construction of the roadway, easements, some other issues. So I will acknowledge that I think that this select board would acknowledge, it's one of the reasons they have me have these kinds of meetings with neighborhoods before we do construction, before we do these kinds of things.
I just want to go back to that one before that. In that you have written as Laurel View Drive and it's Laurel View Road. What's up with
Okay,
that?
I'll change it. Or I'll
When
take the
the town
word,
accepted the
or I'll
road,
take
it
the
changed
road
to
out
Laurel
and
View
the word
Road.
drive out, and I'll refer only to Laurel View. Because I think
It's
we're
Laurel View
getting,
Road, please.
in either case, it doesn't change the basic concept of the statute. To what extent, if any, the town did go in there and do some maintenance? So my question became, to what extent, if any, has the town accrued a liability to continue to maintain the roadway, given previous maintenance was not done under a bylaw adopted in accordance with Mass General Law, Chapter 40, Section 6N? His answer is that the town likely has no ongoing liability to continue the maintenance because its prior maintenance did not continue long enough. And in the discussion, essentially, that maintenance would have had to have gone on open and notoriously for over 20 years to effectively act as a acquisition by prescription. And he went on further to advise that the fact that the town has done snow and ice control, snow removal and ice control, does likely not change the analysis. The question came up, if there was some money left in the bond at the end, can we use that for some of the maintenance now required? So my question to him was, to what extent, if any, might the town have used the initial subdivision bond given to ensure the completion of the roadway to provide normal and ordinary maintenance? If any, if we have the right to do that, might the town now restore the monies to that escrow account and undertake such maintenance without incurring new liability? And his response is that it's unlikely the town could have properly used those escrow funds for ordinary maintenance beyond that originally necessary to finally repair the road in connection with the subdivision layouts. My next question to him, and I had identified betterment, repairs under Chapter 40, Section 6N. Did he have, because he's worked in a number of towns, how many are you representing now, Tom?
8.
He's representing 8 towns right now, and over his lifetime, how many would you say? Some come, some go.
Yeah, about 20 or 30.
20 to 30 towns in his professional career. So I thought maybe he'd seen some other things out there that I was missing and hadn't seen. And he advised that unfortunately, beyond the options identified, there are no obvious additional avenues to assist residents. So Let's talk about some of the things that are possible for the future. Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 80, allows a town to undertake betterments on roads. In fact, one of the towns that Tom's represent, they accept the road and then they impose the betterment. The betterment can be imposed by the town without petition. And if you want, you can always just look that statute up. Some towns do require petitions, anywhere from 2/3 to 3/4 of the owners of property on the street. The betterment is not due on the sale, so if it's 20 years, you sell your property, and 3, you don't have to pay it back. That's subject to the negotiation with the buyer that you sell to. Payback is generally over 20 years. And the statute provides, this is not a decision for the town, the statute provides that if the town used borrow money, they charge 2 points over the debt. So we have some debt that we just issued, though that was short term, it was like 2 3/4. In that case, it would be 4 3/4. If the town uses cash and there's no debt, it's a 5% interest rate. Again, that's laid out in the statute. A local bylaw under Chapter 40, Section 6N is probably a much more immediate response that the town could make conceivably within a year, subject to some things we'll talk about in a moment. And that allows for temporary repairs on private ways. And the statute requires that the bylaw must spell out the type and the extent of repairs. If drainage is going to be included as part of the repairs. If the repairs are required by public necessity, the number of abutters who must petition for the repairs, if betterment charges shall be assessed, and with very limited exception in some fairly wealthy towns, most of the examples I looked at, towns all do recover the costs of the temporary repair. The liability on the city or town for any damages that result from the repair. If the way shall have been open to public use for a term of years, in the examples that I saw, it generally ranges, some towns are as little 6, 10, I've seen 15, 20, I've seen as long as 30. But that's up to the town. So in your case, the bylaw would want to be for a way that's been opened at least 15 years. Because yeah, that would probably work in your case. And if a cash deposit shall be required for the repairs. In some instances where we've done repairs in other communities, it was an $800 load of gravel. And so the town required that somebody take personal responsibility for it instead of trying to lien 15 properties for a couple of years. And that person then collected from their neighbors. There are some challenges and some practicalities. I've kind of spoken to them. How many owners, the recovery of the dollars, method of assessment, that's always an interesting one. These charges have to be recovered. They're done in a number of different ways. In the communities I've worked in, the town has let the property owners pick the method that they like best. The biggest challenge, whether it's a Chapter 40, Section 6N repair done under a local bylaw, and I will be meeting with the Select Board tomorrow night. We're going to bring them up to speed on this meeting tonight, talk about the fall town meeting. Conceivably, if they want us to try to move quickly, we could have a bylaw on the fall town meeting. That'll be October 18th. The biggest challenge generally, whether you're doing a Chapter 80 betterment, Chapter 40 and repair, is always where you get the money. The town's budget is tax capped. That means we can't just add it. We have to cut some service in order to find that money. Some towns, if the debt is what's needed, they do borrow the money. One of the challenges there is the amount of debt the town has taken on recently for the school, the police station, the Pleasant Street Pump Station, the water tower, and I can't remember where that replacement is, the fire truck. The other challenge is that the repayments on the debt are generally higher in the first years than is the income. So again, we have to cut the budget to make that difference up. For smaller projects, free cash. We did get free cash certified last year. We'll have free cash certified this year. And if the town maintains its books and gets everything done in an orderly fashion, there is no reason it wouldn't have free cash each and every year. And then there are capital and debt exclusions. Those are ballot questions, and the question there is always, okay, so we got the money this year to do Laurel View. What do we do in a couple of years when the next one needs some assistance as well? So one of the things that we did in one community, after we did the town bylaw for the repairs, we knew where the money was coming from. Was we got special legislation that allowed us to take the repayments and keep them in a betterment fund. Think of it as a revolving fund. Didn't have to go back to town meeting for appropriation. It was under the control of the selectmen, and I'll speak to that in a moment. But once the payments started to come in, they went into that fund. A couple of years later, when the next street came in and needed some assistance, the money was already there. So the initial challenge was getting some money to get it started. So the next steps for us at our end have been, Mark was out there today with the highway foreman, and they were under an instruction to try to keep the scope of required repairs reined in. You know, the highway foreman was kind of, well, we'll cut this out and we'll price it. The price tag, it was more work, price tag would have been too high. And so we asked them to try to keep the amount of work required to keep the equipment and the operators safe. Suggest what needed to be done, but try to just bear in mind the object was to have a plowable surface for the fall. And as I said, I will meet tomorrow night with the select board, tell them everything that came up tonight, and review some long-term approaches with them and await their instructions. So I want to touch upon what this document is here. The first one is that special legislation that I had adopted for Spencer. There's one other town, I can't remember who did it. But there's 2 or 3 towns in the state that have a special legislative fund that once there is some money, the money's in there, and then it can be used by the community. The other thing that I wanted to show you, and there's many of these. If you Google the phrase unaccepted streets in Massachusetts, or go look at Orange Athol, their bylaws, their ordinances, and look at their bylaws for repairs in private ways, repairs in unaccepted streets, you're gonna find all. So I gave you some samples that towns were, 10,000 plus or minus. Spencer's one, Millis is another, Munson, Groveland. Groveland's one where the way only has to be open 6 years. And you'll see that each of them had to check off, or should have checked off, that provisions in statutes, Sutton and some others. So that's where we are as of right now. And what I'd like to do is to have Tom and myself, or Mark, whoever's most appropriate, try to answer questions that you might have on the possibilities going forward. Yes, ma'am.
Just going back.
Could you just do me a
Yes, I'm
favor for the
sorry.
camera and just
Yep.
give your name, please?
My name is Lori Matson. I live at 73 Laurel View Road. Going back to the slideshow, you had talked about the town liability with the, said the town likely has no ongoing liability to continue maintenance because its prior maintenance did not continue long enough, i.e. 20 years. How long is long enough?
So again, Tom Harrington, Town Council, and I'm sorry to be here under these circumstances. I know this is difficult for you. But, so let me take us, so I answer questions, but let me give you some context so that you understand where I'm coming from. A town is a governmental body. It's a public agency. A public agency can only spend money on public things. So if I have a house in town, the town can't come and paint my house, they can't come and mow my lawn, they can't come and pave my driveway, they can't come and plow my driveway, okay? It's private property, and a public entity cannot do that to private property. So Laurel Road is private property, okay? So there are certain statutes that allow the town to do things like plow and sand and that sort of thing. So the theory under which, so looking at the case from your side, you want to be able to come to the town and say, you've treated this land as if it's public, therefore it became public. And the term you're probably familiar with is adverse possession. Is everyone familiar with adverse possession? So adverse possession is if I move my fence over on my neighbor's yard, and I take 10 feet of his yard, and I put my fence up, and I treat it as if it's mine, and I do that, the words are openly and notoriously, that's my land, not yours, and I do it for 20 years, I now own that land, okay? So looking at it from your perspective, you want to do the same thing. You want to come to the town and say, you have taken this land by adverse possession. In a municipal sense, that's called by prescription. But the same rules hold. The town would need to take that land and treat it openly and notoriously as if it's public land, and it has to do so for 20 consecutive years. By my analysis, the town didn't start its process until 2005. So whether or not we meet the other two, that openly and notoriously, and I'm not saying we do, by my information, I know we don't meet the 20 years. So it hasn't been long enough.
This
Okay,
is your
so-
opinion,
whoa,
and there is,
Excuse me.
Wait a minute.
yep, sorry.
So I have something from back in 1996 when Mr. Conrad Donnell went to a selectmen's meeting in December 17th of 1996, and he says, the town is now plowing the road. 2 residents agreed, but he did not bring the letter. I don't know what letter it is, but he said he will bring it in. The board agreed to wait until 1/21/1997 for the letter, since the highway department plowed for this snowstorm.
Right, so now plowing is a slightly different matter, because if you go earlier in the presentation, the town can plow private ways. It doesn't tick it up to that openly and notoriously, because there's a specific statute that says a town can plow a private way. The reason towns may want to plow private ways is that so police, fire, and emergency vehicles can access your house, as well as mailmen and whatever else. But that, if you're making your case as to why the town has taken possession of your road, I don't think plowing gets you there.
So for them to be coming in, plowing, sanding, removing sand, trimming bushes along sidewalks, and
Cleaning the drainage.
cleaning the drainage.
Mm-hmm.
We've been there for 18 years. And I'm assuming it started before that, because we didn't buy it when we didn't build it. It had been doing that up until 2 years ago, they stopped.
Yeah, so I don't see the 20 years, and I'm also, so I guess, again, looking at it from your perspective, if the town's not going to go to town meeting and take the road, you need to go to court and prove to a judge that by the town doing A, B, C, D, and E, the road became no longer yours, but the town's. And I'm not sure if that's enough to convince a judge that the town has acted by prescription and now owns the road.
Dean Gravett?
Yes?
So, would the police ticketing on that road count as taking it ownership?
I think police ticketing on that road shows a demonstration that that the police were acting as if it's a public way.
They ticketed my car and told me to move it.
Was this for snow plowing reasons?
No,
No.
this was 3 months ago because the car was unregistered, was not on the road, but was on my property near the road. They said it was too close to the road. I had to move it, so I had to get rid of the car.
Right. So,
This just happened.
right, so, fair point, that shows that the town is in some way acting as if it controls that road. Again,
They also stopped people from riding four-wheelers on it, dirt bikes. They do this. They come down our road.
okay,
They do this.
and I acknowledge it, I take as what you're saying is true, and so that's in the record. But is that enough for a judge to say, so that the police did this and this, the town did this and this, the town took that road, it's no longer owned by the residents? In my opinion, it doesn't.
Even though when we buy the property, it's not disclosed that it's a private property, private road.
Nobody.
I think that's,
Yeah, so that's an interesting point. In that case, you may have an issue with the person that sold you the property, but the town doesn't, I know of no law that requires a town to tell people what's a private road and what's a public road. However, the town does keep a list at the town clerk's office of public ways in town.
But my property line doesn't list to the middle of the street. My property line lists to the edge of my property.
Right. That's the way your developer conveyed the title to you,
In this case,
No.
the developer still owns the land,
or has abandoned the
or
land.
has abandoned the land.
So then it hasn't been taxed and no taxes have been paid on that land, so the town should have taken it by non-payment of taxes.
The town doesn't have to take land by, the town can take taxes, or can take land for non-payment, but it doesn't have to. And in many times, again, looking at things from the town side, it's not the prudent thing to do. If there's a hazardous waste site, people don't pay their taxes, the town doesn't want to own that land. So you don't take it. So the town doesn't have to, it's an election.
I was unaware of the police activity. I wish I'd known from the last
I
meeting.
mentioned it the last,
My apologies. I did the best I could to remember everything. But we'll reach out to the chief and I'll discuss it with,
because I had to send a car to the junkyard because I had to know where I could put it.
I'll reach out with the police and I'll discuss it with Tom. Yes, sir.
Mike Mattson, 73 Laurel Road. Haven't we just unveiled a bigger issue here, and I know we all touched upon it, so there's 20-some odd homes in this development. We've refinanced twice now. Going back to our original documentation, neither did the realtor nor our lender, no red flags went up that this was a private road. We didn't have to disclose any private road maintenance agreement. We haven't paid any agreement. So isn't this a bigger issue with the town, not so much the residents who have purchased on that street? That
Well, the
it's
realtor-
come to this point, and isn't there a bigger liability at stake here with regards to the realtors and the lenders?
Well,
In the town?
the town is, one, not involved in the private sale of real estate. Two, we do not contribute to the disclosures that brokers must make. We have no way to do that. If we were asked, we would provide the list of private roads. So, as town council says, if you have any claim because there's something wrong, whether it turned out the foundation wasn't right, something wasn't right, your claim is against the realtor who did not disclose that. Now, interestingly, I looked at a listing today for a property there, and that broker, in fact, did reveal that that the road is not a accepted public way. Sir, you had a question earlier. I don't want to overlook that.
I don't have anything to say. I
Okay.
really don't. This was a PYOA, is what it is, really.
don't know what that means.
Protect your own ass.
Okay.
You're not giving us a fair shake. I think Lori was the one to bring up that we were this way, far away from being accepted by the road. And the town is taking no responsibility for that whatsoever. I have owned there since 2001. 2000. I find this appalling that the services that we have obtained throughout the years, and I guess in the legal eyes is an assumption, okay, and you know what assume means also, another acronym, okay, so, I find this appalling. I really, 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 really do. If, in fact, Conrad Donnell was still the owner of the property, they would still be plowing it today. They're not plowing it today. These bylaws and everything else about the town can pay or choose to or not to, you know what, tell that to the family down the street that losing their I know a 74-year-old husband and wife couple that are losing their house due to tax liens and a $13,000 debit exclusion or a debit penalty is still being applied, and it's not forgiven. You know, this pick and choose is like crazy, and I don't know, man. I don't see it. I really don't see it. You know, and well, that's what I have to say, I guess. Sorry, dude.
Sandra DeLumio, 76 Laurel View. Does it matter at all who actually built that road? I haven't heard any names. I have heard from people who were living there at the time that Conrad Donnell went to the town meeting, said, we're all set, engineers are coming in next week, we're having the road built. Whoever was in power said, like hell you are, you're fired. We'll take whatever money you've got set aside, which I heard was 60 grand. Our guys are building the road. Templeton Highway Department is building that road. And the residents who live there watched it happen. But that doesn't matter. It doesn't matter that Templeton built it. It's our fault that it's falling apart. I just find that appalling.
I haven't seen anything in the record on that. If
It
there
must
was,
have been erased.
if there was
We have
something,
people here who were in that meeting.
yeah.
And the man got up and said, like hell you are, Donnell, get out. Our boys are building the road. And the residents watched our boys build the road.
We've tried to scour through everything that we could find. And I just have not seen anything in the record
It must have been
about
erased,
that at all.
obviously.
If you have some specific people, I'll be happy to talk with them.
I think that the scouring was to protect the town. The scouring wasn't to go back to see what actually happened and how actually this has taken place. All you guys are really trying to do in town council and everything else, and I understand. I mean, the town has a liability, and that's why you're here, and I understand. But the scouring has not taken place on the part of the residents of Laurel View. The scouring has been for the town of Templeton, and you made that clear on our last meeting, that I am here to protect the town of Templeton. And you have become Superman because now you have control over all these entities because of our own failures among the board and everything else, that positions have been fallen out and you become mayor, you have become sheriff in the town. And believe me, your intentions are not for the residents of Laurel View.
I'm sorry you feel that way. We tried to give it a unbiased view, and an unbiased view of the record would show that if this had gone to town meeting in 2005 or 2006, there were multiple letters in the file from the engineer that, if read into the record, reflected that the road, in fact, should not have been accepted even at that point in time. Ma'am, you had a question in the back?
I'll let Lori go.
Yes, ma'am.
Then why was the planning board so hot to have Conrad Donnell sign over the project to the planning board in 2005? It was noted way back in forever. There is so much written on that street about problems, that it's a problem here, it's a problem there. I went back, it's still a problem. There's bogginess in the first 150 feet of the entrance, still boggy. Oh, I fixed it. It's only because it's been raining. It's all dried up now. I don't understand why the friggin' planning board even wanted it. But they told council, write me up some paperwork, fax it over to him. We want it. Yep, okay. Conrad couldn't wait to sign that paper. He signed it over to the planning board. How is that our problem? I don't get it. I don't know how you could morally sit there and say this is our fault and
It
have
isn't
us
morals
pay.
anymore, it's law.
It's not, and that's the
You know,
problem.
That's right, that's the problem.
It's, it was all great for, that whole time period where, there was all kinds of crap going on with the road, that they just wanted the road, the planning board was just ready to push it to the selectmen before anything fell apart. Like, right in front of my house right now, I have a sinkhole at my catch basin, and all the water is running like a river right down into a freaking hole, and there's another hole into the catch basin, which that's all running into that too. But, they wanted to get that all done and make the town accept it before all of that happened, which now is 2018. Nobody wants to touch the road now. But it would have been yours had it gone through 2005, when there was nobody saw it happening. But they wanted to push it. They wanted to push it.
One of the interesting challenges is that nobody's dealt with this issue since
No kidding.
'05. I was handed a letter midday, which was a letter from the planning board, strike that, from the selectmen to the planning board, asking them to come and discuss this.
That one?
Um,
The one you have on your desk?
It looks it.
Yes, I
yeah,
have
from-
that too.
From here,
And
it
it
looks it.
stopped right there.
And while this has been most unfortunate, I'm going to try to find some good in this, because hopefully the selectmen will, whatever you think of this process, finally deal with the possibilities under the statute to begin to deal with some of the unaccepted streets in town. I'm hopeful that this has raised this to a point where they will not be dealing with this in 10 years.
I guess what my hope on this whole meeting and this whole situation that has come about is that the town would say, you know what? We understand what's going on, and it's really something that happened not on our watch, but on their watch. We should do what's right and take that street over. We should put it out in front of the town, fix it, and take it over, because it's not fair to those residents to be doing what we have done all that time, putting all of our trucks over that road. Do you think our cars created all those potholes? I doubt it. So, from plowing, sanding, probably the trash trucks didn't help either, but our cars didn't do that. We don't go around digging up our own street. So wouldn't it be nice if the town just said, you know what, we're gonna do the right thing, and we're gonna take that street over, and you've paid enough in taxes, because we didn't tax you as a private road, we taxed you as a public road. All these years,
So first, I will put that proposition in front of the select board when I review this meeting with them. But I do need to be clear. Your taxes today are, according to the assessors, calculated the same way they would have been if you were on an accepted street. They look at what the houses in your neighborhood and that assessing district go for. And those sales prices reflect what buyers think the property's worth. So the difference between that street having been accepted and unaccepted, according to what I'm told by the assessors, would not have lowered your assessed value each of those years in any fashion.
But you are right by saying.
Yes, sir. I'll be back to you, ma'am. I just want to make sure everybody gets a chance.
No, that's okay.
It's all based on what the market will pay for.
Yes, sir.
Because if I was to buy a house now, I would never buy this. I mean, clearly, why would I buy a house that has all those kind of problems and call a private street? So the value that people are willing to pay is coming from the market and has nothing to do with anything else.
Right.
So if it's a private road with all kind of problems in a town that doesn't want to help, clearly you guys don't want to help. Because the only thing we hear is, how can we not help? You tell us everything about all the legal ways that you're not going to help. We haven't heard anything about how you are going to help us in any way, shape, and form. So why would anyone, if I'm selling my house and I tell them that, they will say, oh yeah, sure, let me go and live in this beautiful town because, wow, those guys are really great. I mean,
Well, we have laid out some ways that the town can help, but those are decisions that ultimately get made by the select board as to what they're gonna take to town meeting. They get made by the town meeting, and then we have to find the cash to do it. Yes, ma'am.
Can you just answer, when did Laurel View Road, or when did it go from Laurel View Drive, private way?
Sign's
When
over
that
there.
sign disappeared.
When that sign is there.
Every document
wanted
from
that
the
sign.
minute I bought my house,
That's
I
right.
was Laurel View Drive, private way. Now, for some miraculous reason, it came down right about hand in hand when the town was taking the road over. We went from Laurel View Drive to
And how
Laurel
come you
View
still have it?
Road. And it doesn't say anything on that street sign about a private way.
So you live in there and you think it's a public road.
Correct.
Right, when I first built my house, we couldn't get mail delivered, because the federal government would not deliver mail on a private road. I had a P.O. box. That sign comes down, I now don't need a post office box, I can now put up my mailbox, and now the federal government delivers my mail. So even if the government, they know we're a public road, why can't you guys just take it over and be done?
That'll ultimately be a decision for the selectmen, and I think, we'll talk with them about that, and then the question becomes, where does the money come from?
but where are we going to find the money? I mean, we have the same problem. Where are we going to find the money?
Right.
Sir?
Zach Ford, I live in 67. The question I have is, I guess like the highway department or whatever, checked the road out like the last few days and see
You
what.
marked something today.
Yeah, so the question I have is like, I'm assuming you did it, correct? Yep. So what did you see, what needs to be fixed, and what are we kind of looking at if we were just to patch it up temporarily, so at least we can get plowed this winter and figure out some of these long-term issues? What's the short-term fix for this?
Right, wouldn't the selectmen wanna know what that's gonna cost as well?
Because you,
So
I guess
there
it
must be
was,
some figures.
that's why
An
I'm asking.
assessment was made this afternoon.
Well, that's why I'm saying, like,
Correct.
just a basic estimate, an educated guess, right? If we had to fix a pothole here, a ditch here, we all, like, every neighbor came in, we had like our own little meeting, decided, like, we split it by each
Carter
house.
said $400 a hole, the other, on the
structure.
first meeting,
Yeah.
a structure.
I mean, like,
So,
what are we looking at? I mean, I'm kinda curious, I mean.
I'm hesitant to give you a price. I think the right way of doing this is to go out and get some quotes. And taking a look at the area, we this fine gentleman and this fine
Can
gentleman.
I speak to that? I actually called you on July 18th, I believe. And you got back to me right away, but it took till today for someone to come out and walk around. Because I was curious as to what it would cost, like what you said, to throw some asphalt down on some of the patches. Because I was willing to, at least get some numbers so that we could talk about it as a neighborhood to get it plowed this winter. Because I was thinking, well, maybe it would be cheaper to do that than hire a private contractor, because that road, I'm not sure there'd be any private contractor in his right mind who would plow that road right now. Or if he did, it would be at an exorbitant price, so I figured it would be easier to patch it and let the town plow it. So I haven't been able to get any prices because today was the first assessment on it. And, you know, some of the things, I can understand they need to be patched, you know, because they're clearly not, I guess, plow ready, let's put it that way. But some of the other things, if you take a ride around just about any other road in town, the condition of the road is very similar. And so I'm not necessarily sure that every single thing that was like touched on today had to be done. There's some things that clearly have to be done.
And one of the
So I'm not
challenges
sure
is
what the numbers
the
are, but
structures.
I honestly believe that if the town should actually step up here and negotiate with some paving contractor, which I think you might have better bargaining power than the residents would have, and you should be able to mark out exactly what needs to be done, and I think that should be a courtesy that should be done for us. Because this whole private road thing, I mean, okay, yes, on the books it's a private road, but let's face it, it was a de facto public road going way back. And the reason it didn't go any further in 2005 was because someone discovered it, somebody on the Board of Selectmen or the Planning Board or somebody decided, wait a minute, this is gonna be this could be a money pit. And so they decided that they weren't gonna accept the road. And so it never made it to the town meeting. But we've been paying taxes all along, like everybody else. I mean, we don't get a discount for living on that road. So I really think it should be the town's obligation right now to actually get some estimates and then put the numbers forth to us to get it patched. And then if we have to kick in to get it patched, to get it plowed, then so be it.
That's
I
right,
really
Jim,
think-
because that's all this was tonight, was just what we aren't gonna do.
Right.
This is why we're not gonna do it. That's what it was, that's why I said POYOA, you know, that's all this was, you
And I
know?
don't think it's asking
They're
too
not-
much to have you do that for
Well,
us,
we
to be
can
honest.
connect you
Again.
with some contractors, but you do not want us to get the estimates. Any estimates that we get or work that we would contract for, the amount of regulation and the wage rates that we have to get those estimates under will drive the price dramatically higher. But if you would like
Well, you should.
the names of
well,
a
I guess
couple
at
of
the very least,
contractors,
You should
we can
actually
do that.
draw something up.
The
exactly
reason-
what
this
they
is the
want.
reason
I
why
I
I
took
was-
notes today, but I would like, if I went out and got the estimates, I don't want, after it's done, for you to come in and say, oh, well, you forgot to do this, this, and this.
We don't
That's
know what
right.
needs to be done.
Exactly,
So-
that's kind of my point.
What we
That's
can-
right. That's why I asked that question, like.
What we can do, if we get a full dry day tomorrow, I know that some of the areas were painted.
Yeah, some of them,
Today?
yeah.
We'll finish painting out the areas and have a set of notes for area 1, area 2, what needs to be done in that area. The larger problem is, some of those cases, is the structures.
Yeah, I understand.
They're above the surface,
And I have one more.
or they have
question, I
sinkholes
guess.
around them.
Question / comment, I guess. Going way back now, when a development is constructed, you know, I'm under the assumption that, you know, as the private, you know, developer begins to, you know, lay the base and then maybe do the you know, the foundational work and the drainage and all that, and then the base coat of asphalt, and then the final coat of asphalt, isn't there some supervision from the town after this whole process?
Of course there was.
Going back, you know,
Sidewalks and everything else, that your
yeah,
wife
I mean,
walks
I get
around
that
every,
the road is
you know?
failing because of improper construction. And, you know, there was comments in an article going back a couple of years in the Garden News about there being stumps, you know, and then paving over stumps. Well, if the contractor was allowed to pave over stumps, wouldn't that be a
Shame on the
liability thing
inspectors.
with the town not doing their job and such?
So I can answer that question for you,
Okay.
but you're not gonna like the answer.
Okay.
When a town permits a developer to construct a road, it has a set of road standards, right? So you need to do this much base coat, this much top coat.
But don't they check off each step of the way?
So typically what they would do is have the developer hire an engineer, and the engineer certifies to the town that it's done in the right way. Now, I'll tell you, so I've been practicing since 1990. Towns got better at this in the 2000s. I think honestly, in the 70s and 80s, developers didn't go belly up. You know, developers owned their development company, and it was, you know, John Jones Development, and they kept it going. So they went back and finished work. In the 90s, I'll blame it on lawyers. Lawyers came up with the scheme of you start a company to do one development, and then you close that company, so you have no liability. And I think that's what you're seeing. I know we saw it at dozens of other developments too. So what you have is a developer who pulls out as much money as he can and then closes up shop.
Excuse me, he's still alive and well, God, he's still alive and well. His son delivered loam to my front yard that's still in the pile in the front yard. He's still alive and well. And if the town had a gripe against Conrad Donnell, he was more than approachable for decades now, almost 2 decades.
So what I'll bet is that this man formed a company to develop your neighborhood and then closed that company so that the town can't go after him personally, but would have to go after his company. And I would say, you know, so you have the same rights. I don't think the town has a right to go after him, but I think you do have a right to go after him.
Even after he signed over the subdivision to the town?
So let's talk about that, right? So, there's two, for a town to acquire property, two things need to happen, right? The seller needs to sell it, and the buyer needs to accept it. And in a town, the only town meeting can accept real estate. So if town meeting doesn't do it, it's, you know, it's kind of like it was half a contract. He was the ready, willing, and able buyer, but you didn't, or the ready, willing, and able seller, but you didn't have a buyer who did what the buyer needed to do to accept the property. So he may have stood there with his deed in hand, but if the town doesn't accept it, the town doesn't own it.
The challenge, according to the record, is that there were several easements that were still required in order to have sufficient lands and the drainage easements to accept it.
So what easements need to be done?
I'd have to go back and look at what those were.
Because even if we get all of this done, don't we still have to address those easements in order for the town to take over the road?
We'd have to look at them in some detail.
I mean, I would just hate for us to dump all this money and patch the road, thinking, hey, we did our side, now it's up to you to take the road over. And then you come back and you say, well, you know, now you still need the drain basin, which should be here, and this easement.
We can help work through that. And, you know, some of it's gonna depend on what the selectmen instruct me to do, and you do have the right of petition. Even if the selectmen don't put it on a town meeting warrant, you have the right to put it on a town meeting warrant, to be present and to attempt to convince your fellow citizens to act favorably upon the article. Mr. Forts, I'm gonna,
I was just gonna say that although the select board does have the ability to put this on the town meeting warrant, it's ultimately up to the citizens whether they wanna accept that liability. So if we were to place this on the town floor, coming up in the fall, and the townspeople are ultimately the ones that would decide whether or not they wanna accept this road. And that's the moral choice that would be faced, is the town willing to pay for all these repairs that need to be done. I think it's really, the select board choice stops there, is we can get it on there, but it's really up to the rest of the town whether they want to adopt it or not. So if we do complete these repairs that need to be done, then it would be still up to the citizens to adopt that roadway. We can only place it on that warrant, and then the advocacy for that being adopted, if I'm correct, would fall down under the citizens.
and I don't wanna mislead anyone, and I don't think you are confused by this, but the minimum amount of repairs to get through so that the road can be safely plowed this winter, maybe the next winter or the winter after, is a patch. There are a number of sections of that road that clearly have failed. It needs a major reconstruction at some point in the not-too-distant future. Yes, sir.
Yeah, Jim Fay at 111 Laurel View, and I went around today, around the neighborhood. And the first two things we looked at were the drains right out there at the edge of the road of,
Up there
Hubbardston
off
Road.
of, right at the
Hubbardston
entrance.
Road, right on the corner, there's a sinkhole now on one side. It's not as big as Laurie's over there, but there's a sinkhole there. They put a barrel over it. And the highway foreman said, yeah, that's his stuff. The next thing we look at was the part that after the town took over the road in 2005, they fixed that first section, and there's a sinkhole there. And they're, talking about, digging it up, putting it in some sandbags, filling it in, tarring it over. At no point when we went around the neighborhood today were they saying that we had to move these structures. And that's all you've been saying. They were saying we could feather it up, we could get through.
I'm
Right,
not saying you have to move them, I'm suggesting that they are above the surface, and they need to be dealt with in some way. Whatever these guys told you is the way to do it, whether it's lowering it, feathering around them so that the blade will go up and over it.
You're saying, yeah, but what we went through today and what you're saying is a completely different thing.
I-
It's a lot more what you were talking about, digging up and doing every single one of them. They're all up, they're all down, they all gotta be done. That's what you were saying. And I'm not done yet. The town took over this road, and the topper for it was we came all the way around, and we come to this place, and the foreman says, what the hell happened there? I said, well, there was like a little sinkhole there, and the town came in back then and tarred over the whole thing. You can see where the circle is, the town has taken this road, and now you're saying, no, we don't. The town did a really crappy job on anything they worked on in the road, and now you're saying we have to pay for it. It's wrong. You guys gotta take care of the people that are taking care of you. We're paying you. We're paying you, we're paying all you guys on the board. That, coming out of our pockets. And you guys are not representing us. You see that this is wrong, that we are getting screwed, and you're saying, well, this law says I can't do it. This bull crap. Take care of the people that are taking care of you.
Yes, sir.
Dean got a 25 Laurel View. My question's for you, where you went back to the buyer and seller part.
Yeah.
And you said you had a seller, but you didn't have a buyer.
Yeah.
But yet the town acted like they bought it.
So I concede that point to you. In various ways, the town has acted.
They changed
As-
the name, they fixed holes,
Mhm.
they've cut the trees, they've ticketed. They have acted like they bought it. They own it. It's a technicality that the city council didn't go to the final vote. That's all it is. It's a technicality. The final vote wasn't done.
Right, so if you want, but again, so I'm not talking morally, I'm talking legally, right? You want to make that case legally. Excellent argument. But what I'll tell you is, you need to show 20 years of continuous activity.
Excuse me.
And that's what you don't have.
You're saying 20 years, and I'm reading these things here, and they all say 6 years.
That's right.
What's
That's
going
what
on
I'm
with
saying.
that?
There are
They're
different
different,
stipulations, and
they're
that's what I was going to
different.
say.
6
The-
years.
6 years is for liability, right? So
Well, if I may, the 20 years has to do with the town acquiring land by prescription.
right.
The 6 years, those are model bylaws adopted under Mass General Law, Chapter 40, Section 6N. And what that allows the town to do repairs in private ways. And when the town adopts that bylaw, there's that section, those 6 or 8, A to H, whatever, items they have to address in their bylaw. And one of those is they have to state how long the road has been open to public travel. And in those particular towns, they've decided that they will make repairs when a road has been open for only 6 years. They are separate and distinct legal issues. One has nothing to do with the other.
But this is, the town did their votes. The only vote they didn't do was their final vote. And then they turned around and they changed the name. They took care of the road. They did everything in that road. The only thing they didn't do is they didn't have their little council meeting and say, okay, we've taken it over. But they acted like they did. So why would any of us know that it was a private road when the town has acted like it's a public street? How would we know it's a private road? When I bought the house, it didn't say private road. It said what it says now. No private road, no nothing.
I mean, the town was maintaining the road for over a dozen years. Right?
I,
I mean,
I think it's got.
since they took it over,
I
since they
think
changed the
it's- I think
sign and
it's
they
time to get a
started
lawyer and
fixing
go
the
through
road.
it.
They
I
maintained the
think
road.
that's a bad idea,
I don't
honestly.
either.
Shouldn't you guys try to have us?
And evidently, they're not very good at it because now it's completely fallen apart.
Yeah, they're
Now you're
repaired.
saying we
Well, they
have to
didn't
pay
have any
for it.
money. That's the problem. They didn't have any money to help us out or fix roads. It's evident throughout
They
the
were playing with
town,
low tax rate.
you know.
it is unfortunate that in '06, they did not have these conversations with you. And it is unfortunate that they proceeded in violation of the statute. I cannot imagine how PO'd you are. I can't. They have,
But then instead of, you say you can't understand how PO'd we are, all you're
I said I
looking ways
can.
for
He
ways
can.
to
I can.
squirrel out of taking care of it.
I'm telling you the law. If there's a way to squirrel in to doing something for you,
You can make
You
the
would
law
do that.
work whichever way you want it to work.
Mhm.
Counselor, I'll leave that one to you.
It's true.
Well,
You can make the law work whichever way you want to.
I would disagree with that, but
90% of it,
If
in
one of
this
the board,
instance,
if
right?
one of the board of directors or councilmen lived on Laurel View, it'd be taken care of.
Right, so these are,
It
so,
really would.
I don't
You can make a new
know.
bylaw.
So there's legal answers and there's political answers. You're looking for, you sit here, you want a legal answer.
Yep.
I'm telling you, I don't see that you have a legal answer to this question. I encourage you to
let's work
consult
for
an
the
attorney.
town.
Let me finish. I encourage you to get an attorney, because maybe he sees something I don't, and if he does, great.
Well, you've been doing this a long time, and you know judges don't like technicalities,
Right,
and this is a technicality.
So then
It
you're-
didn't get voted on.
right, so if you don't have a legal answer, then you need to look for a political answer. And I think that's what they're trying to provide you with, a political answer. It's not as palatable as having the town go in and say, okay, we got it, we'll fix it. I understand that, and I'm sorry for that, but I think, you know, that there's kind of like a meet us halfway approach here, and I don't know that
But the
you,
town isn't doing that at the moment.
They're dragging their
But it's
feet.
only-
but I
It
think, well,
isn't at the moment, because what you provided for us was, this is why we can't and won't.
I think what I provided
So-
is, this is, the legal answer this group is looking for is not there. And I think the second part of Carter's presentation was, the political answer is adopt a bylaw, start a special fund, and that's the work together approach.
Even if tomorrow we wanted to do something and had the money to do it, we can't use Chapter 90 on unaccepted roads. And we cannot spend those money without the bylaw. Having the bylaw does not require the town to spend money, but it gives it the legal mechanism to do so. Kim, this young lady in front of you had a question, if I might, before.
Viviani Thakur. I live in 87 Laurel View. The way I remember it, we live in there since 1995. Since, yeah, 1995. Since that time, the town has plowed the road. So 1995 to 2018. Suppose 5 years Conrad did it, still it's 20 years. So you should not be having a problem with our 20-year part.
Do you want to explain the difference between the
Right.
plowing statute and the prescription?
Right, so, again,
Now there's a whole new thing.
No, it's not.
This was touched on.
it's not a new thing, honestly. I'm not, I've given you my best answers, right? But plowing a road is different than,
But they didn't just plow the road.
right, and whatever you say beyond plowing and sanding, I take as true, and I say, yes, that's a good point, and that lines up in your favor to build your case to demonstrate that the town has actually acquired the land. But plowing and sanding, there's a specific statute that allows a town to plow and sand private roads because it's in the public's interest for them to do that, because, mail needs to get there, school buses need to get there, emergency services need to
For the
get
first 15
there.
years, there was nothing to patch, to fix, to do anything with until the last 10.
It started failing, right, I understand.
So, and they did, they used to come in and patch holes.
And like she said earlier, the post office wouldn't deliver because it was a
That's
private
right.
road.
Yeah.
It became a public road, they started delivering. Somebody had to tell the federal government, this is a public road, it's.
I can tell you that we did not, I can tell you that if you came in for the list of private roads, they would have seen Laurel View was still a private road at that point in time. The challenge is how we move forward in a fashion where we can try to be of some assistance within the financing that we have and the requirements of statute. Mr. Forts.
So I just want to say that town council, when we had hired him on, he came thoroughly recommended, 100%. And you are very right, he is here to represent the town of Temple. Now, with that being said, he has a responsibility to mitigate any liability. So in understanding if there was a liability for the town and the town did adopt this road, or this was now under town's domain, he has a right to protect that and to adopt that, because he knows that the legal lawsuit that would be coming from you would force us, and we would have to pay town council that amount of money on top of adopting the road. So what he's saying here is he does not see you guys have a legal right. I would say that you guys should contact an attorney, get a consultation, see what it is, see what their opinion is. A second opinion is always a great idea. However, I think the point of this meeting tonight is how do we move forward? And I came here tonight because I know you guys are very upset. I know this seems as one of those, it's a blunder on town's part. I mean, it's a blunder from the selectmen. We know how Templeton is in its history. We know that there's been issues. What I really wanted to hear tonight was, there's really two options to move forward. And that's, one is we put this at a town meeting floor and we get the town to adopt it, and we can use those Chapter 90 funds to fix the road. The problem is that the town knows that this is an issue road and it's gonna cost a lot of money, and I think somebody else had mentioned tonight, there's a lot of roads that need repair. Somebody said there's not many roads different than this road that are public. And I think that's a very true point. And so when you put this to a town meeting vote, you run the risk of them not adopting it. And that's one repercussion of it. The other thing is that we could raise a betterment and say, we're gonna charge a betterment on your behalf and say, we'll charge you whatever it is, a monthly fee on their card, I believe I'm understanding the betterments correctly, to repair this road on the town's behalf, using union wages, because we have to pay a prevailing wage to fix this road. And then the third alternative is that you guys find a private contractor to do it. It's money. At the end of the day, it's money. Or it's a political action that we need to take, and we need to advocate for it, get this road adopted, so we can use Chapter 90 funds. And so I think, I hear a lot about arguing with legal counsel, and I don't think anybody in this room's a lawyer, and I'm not a lawyer either. I would defer everything to town council, and that's why I would recommend, if you truly think you have an argument, is to get a lawyer and see what he has to say about this. But I think that's gonna be an additional funds on your part that may go to waste. So that's really what I wanted to come here tonight and hear was, what do you guys feel comfortable with? Do you guys think you guys can win this on town meeting floor with the support of the select board? Do you think that that's the alternative? Do you wanna maintain private way? Do you wanna kick the police out of that road so that they can't start ticketing you and getting these? That's the things we need to hear, and then I need to make my decision on, because I wanna give you the best approach to this. If I could adopt this road, I would, and if I had all the money in the world to fix it, I would. But I'm sure you can understand my position, there's a lot of stuff I have to balance on my act as well. So I really wanted to have that moment tonight to see where you guys feel comfortable with. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Well said. To the residents of Laurel View, the last step was not taken. So
But
by
nobody told
that
anything.
saying,
Nobody told us about it.
so then we have two choices. We take it to court and say, why didn't the town do it for us? but the last step was not taken, so in light of that, what do we do from that? Because the law is the law, and that's why he's here, and that's why they're saying all of this, you know, so, again, fight it, or somehow come to agreement with the town.
I'm
Yes,
Colleen
ma'am.
Fay, 111 Laurel View. I can only speak for Jim and I mean, we've got 2 kids in college, we're low, middle class. I'd rather dump the money, what little money we have, into repairing the road to get it plowed than a lawsuit that could last for years. I don't have all that kind of money to dump into a lawyer for a second opinion. And the few lawyers that I did speak to, one lawyer said to me, he goes, labor intensive, and when you hear those 2 words, he said, you're looking at a lot of dollar signs. So it's only my opinion, but I want to move forward. When I originally started the letter to you guys, I want to go to the Laurel View that my kids grew up on, that riding bikes around and in a nice road. And I think moving forward, I'd rather see the money go to betterment and get the road repaired and move forward to get the road accepted by the town, final and foremost, in the end. Because I think if we go to court, it's gonna cost a lot of money that I don't have. That's just my opinion.
Yes, ma'am.
2 things. There was a manhole cover on one side of the development that was getting hung up on one of the plows at one time, so they came in and they pulled it up, threw it over in the woods, and paved over it. Now, we have another one on the other side of the development that is now raised. Is that something where they would pull it up and throw it in the woods and pave over it, or is this something that they're gonna actually dig up, throw back down, and pave to grade?
Well, I don't know the particulars, but I would hope to high heaven that repeating a solution of ripping there's a reason there's a manhole cover there. You have all closed drainage on that street. And whoever's maintaining that needs to be able to see the pipes and the flows and what's going on. So here's what we can do in the short term. I'll have Mark ask the other Mark about that tomorrow. Here's what we can do in the short term. First, we will bring forth to the selectmen tomorrow night your position, which I would sense is everyone else's position, that because of the actions of the town, such as they were, the town should still move forward to put this on the town meeting floor for acceptance. I think that everyone would probably agree with that, unless I'm seeing anyone that disagrees with it. I'll put that in front of the selectmen. Bear in mind that your fellow citizens would probably be highly reluctant in '05 and '06 for anybody who looked in that file to vote yes then, and even more unlikely to vote yes today. But I will put that in front of the board. Secondly, I will bring to their attention the ability under Chapter 40, Section 6N, to adopt the local bylaw similar to the models, and there's probably another 250 out there. We just tried to pull 6 or 8, whatever Brian pulled together there for us. And we will share with them the special legislation that I used in Spencer. It's not been widely adopted, but it's there, and it is a vehicle for the future. I will ask Mark to work with 1 or 2 private local contractors to have them price the work for you to paint. Let's go back in when it's dry, paint the areas out. But it's your contract and it's not our liability. So somebody needs to be responsible for the repairs that are getting done, telling the contractor what to do and making sure you're getting insurance from them. we can get pricing for us to do it if there is a bylaw, but I will tell you that it will most likely be 50 to 90% higher than you can do it on your own because of the regulations that we work under. A job that would cost you in your house $9,000 or $10,000 to do a bathroom is gonna cost us 20 to 25. It's the statutes. We're not happy about it every time we put our job out to bid. But we have to pay prevailing rate and bonds and. And I will talk with the police chief and with council, about this issue of ticketing things on private ways and the like.
My other question.
Let me just, so, subject to some questions, we'll still take some questions and thoughts. Those are the homework that I'm thinking I'm walking out of here with tonight. So I saw you, and then I'd like to take her over here first.
Oh.
She hasn't said much of anything all night, if that's,
Linda Vanderbilt, 58 Laurel View. Can somebody tell me why the town felt the need to change our sign in 2005? If the status hadn't changed? I mean, if they didn't like the condition of the sign and they put it back up, why wasn't it still Laurel View private way if that's the status of what the road was back then?
well, first, let me say it is not convention across the Commonwealth or in all states that private ways are marked as private ways.
Why did we need the road change, this road
So
sign change?
in Holden, private ways actually have a danger sign at the top. I don't know why it was changed. I don't know why many of the things that happened, unfortunately, from
If the status didn't
0203
change, then why didn't they?
They
to
changed the name from a drive to a
15,
road.
16
But then why did they
happened
take
the
the
way they
private
did.
off of it?
I know, but they changed it from a drive to a road.
Yes, ma'am.
So, I'm just curious, devil's advocate, if the town wasn't so poor, would you be coming to the residents and asking us to pay? And would it be a different outcome if the town had money? Would we even be here arguing this if the town had money? Or is this all an issue because the town doesn't have money and they've been so poor?
Even in Wellesley, which is not noted for being poor. Would you like to explain the
Yeah,
process
so
in Wellesley?
I'm town council in several towns. One of the towns I'm town council in is Wellesley. So we talked about how they do it in Wellesley. Wellesley would do it the exact same way that they're suggesting here, that the residents bring it up to standard and then town meeting accepts it.
However, would Wellesley be so dumb as to have done it this, would their history be this bad? Would they have done it this way? I can't even imagine that they would have. Probably not.
It varies town by town. So Spencer recaptures, Millis does not. Munson has a cap of $500. That's all they'll spend on the road. So basically, that's maybe 2 loads of gravel and 2-3 hours of spreading it around. You'd have to look at Groveland requires that it be paid down in cash, that they get a cash deposit. So you'd have to look at each and every community, and no, not everybody does require that it be paid for, though in my experience, the vast majority of towns do require that it be paid for. Sir, up front.
Ryan Woodcomb, 35. I mean, really what we're seeing here is an entire history of miscommunication and misinformation being provided to us. You keep going back to this 2005 folder that's got the results of the survey. Is any of that, how do you resolve that? I mean, isn't that the bigger issue, getting that stuff resolved so that it can actually become town road?
So I guess I don't know what you mean by resolving.
Well, if they wouldn't put it before the vote back then, because all of these problems with the road,
Right.
don't those need to be fixed? And what are those problems if none of us were ever told about it?
Right, so excellent question, but political question, so I think when Carter takes this to the Board of Selectmen tomorrow night, they'll talk about what needs to be done to the road in order to put an article before the town to vote on it. As Carter has pointed out, at the same time, you're entitled by citizens petition to put this before the town as well.
And let me speak, if I might, let me just go back to the title issue for a moment. It can get very confusing and all the different elements can get conflated. So if you're doing a repair under 40, section 6N, we're just doing a repair. We're not laying it out as a public way. So if there's a small title issue here or there, or a drainage easement that's needed, we don't have to get sucked into all that. We go in, we do the repair, we're out. It's only if the road was being laid out as a public way would we have to get back into all of those title issues. And then we'd have to do some title work, possibly some eminent domain work.
But why
We'd
wouldn't
have
any
to
of
try to
that-
sort that out.
Why wouldn't any of that have been handled back when it was done?
I can't speak to that, sir.
I think it's this, before I even bought the house, so I have no idea.
The record would show that the two property owners involved refused to give the easements that were needed. And the only way around that would have been for somebody to buy them and then donate them, or for the town to attempt to take them.
Is it public record who those people were?
I don't know if we have the full title exam, to be honest with you. But the
Vehicle
files,
registry.
this young lady here, and I believe the one right behind you, it's a good 6 inches of paper, without great exaggeration. I'm gonna let her go first. okay?
Colleen Fay, 111. I have a question for legal. My deed says 111 Laurel View Drive. But now somebody switched it to Laurel View Road. Is my deed wrong or obsolete or?
It wasn't wrong when you bought the house. It was right. When you sell the house, my guess is your attorney will write, what was your number again?
111 Laurel View Drive.
So your attorney will write 111 Laurel View Drive, formerly, or Laurel View Road, formerly known as 111 Laurel View Drive.
And my second part to that is, isn't it somewhere in the deed, wouldn't it said something about me owing up to the middle of the road, or it being somewhere in the deed, like when they do all that research, you know, when,
Yeah.
I'm trying to think, the title, when they're researching the title of your property and everything.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't that have come up? Yeah, we
So
bought our place in 2000, we built it from Donnell.
Right.
It was never, I never even heard of anything about a private road.
Right, so
I just,
I guess let me try to explain it this way. Okay, so you own your land, right, and that's,
Yeah.
you've got your, the four corners, let's call it a square, and it abuts a roadway, okay? So the roadway, it's not in your deed, it's in whoever, Mr.
Conrad Donnell.
Conrad Donnell, right? So he owned the whole parcel. He cut off a bunch of little squares and sold them all to you. He did not sell the road to you, nor did the town accept it. So it's not in your chain of title, it's not in our chain of title. Okay, so now we have this piece of land that's been abandoned, right? Because he no longer exercises control over it. Okay. In the case of roads, the case law says that you own to the center of the way. So that if we have an owner, awesome, we have an owner, he owns the road, or the town owns the road, but we don't have an owner in this case. So that the land reverts so that you own the center of the road. More importantly, you all have certain rights in the road to pass and repass, so that you can invite FedEx to come to your house, and you get to drive by everybody, your FedEx gets to drive by everybody's house to reach your house. If the neighbor at the end of the road said, I'm going to take my half, and I'm gonna put a wall on it, and you don't get to drive on it anymore, you could say to him, no, we all have the right to drive on this road. So he can't do it. So it's like you have rights to the center of the road, but you don't really get to exercise many of those rights because everyone else has rights too. They all have the rights to pass and repass and to be visited by friends, neighbors, utilities, whoever.
Yes.
So going back to his question about 2005 and when it wasn't going through to the town meeting, when it wasn't going to be accepted, in all the information that I looked at, I couldn't find, and that's why it was so frustrating for me, is that I found that it went to the selectmen, that the planning board offered it up to the selectmen to put on a warrant for the town meeting that year. It's stopped at the selectmen, but I have nothing further.
That was my point where he made 2 points. Carter made 2 points. First was about the point about the town meeting and that the town would not accept, if they saw back in 2005, they would not accept that. It didn't even get that far. Why? I can accept your second thing as far as our options and everything else, but the fact of the matter is that somebody stopped it before it even got to town warrant. And we weren't notified about it, we weren't told anything about it. That's where the buck stops, right there, because the planning board said yes, the selectmen board said yes. Who or what stopped that from getting to the town meeting? Because in 2005, I will guarantee you that road would have been unanimously beyond the town. It was a beautiful place. Sidewalks, trimmed off. What stopped that? And that's where we're saying that the town has liability, okay?
I get you.
You know what I mean?
I get you.
I worked in a city.
That's where it is.
I worked in a city in Michigan, and the city council had council attorney at every single meeting. And I said, why are you doing that? We could save X if we didn't do that. And the mayor said, because we want the advice of town council. So we would have a matter in front of the city council. They'd look to the end of the table. Mr. Forrest would give him his answer, and I can guarantee you virtually every morning afterwards, he would call me around 8 or 8:30 and say, upon reflection, and I think what happened here was a lot of upon reflection. They got a request from the planning board, they just moved forward along, and then somebody, someplace, somehow, and I don't know, had their second thoughts, and the whole thing, well, I can't use expletives on camera, but it brings up a very important point that I don't want you to lose. Whatever happens, that we can hopefully find a way to get the minimum repairs needed so the road can be plowed. Whatever you do, because I probably won't be here, council might be on, some of you might have sold. Whatever you do, for Christ's sakes, keep the pressure on, keep reminding whoever's in the town administrator's chair, in the select board, this is something the community needs to deal with. And it's not just your road. It's all the rest of them.
And that's a good point.
And I'm, we certainly, yes, I look at the law and that's the way it is. Certainly, if we can find a way out of this so that I don't have all of you, sticking pins in voodoo dolls of me, making the rheumatism, arthritis act up worse, I'd love to find a way to do that. But even if we get that done, it's really important that you not let this drop after we get past that point. Sir?
Zach Ford, 67. I just want to clarify and then I have a comment for the room. So we have 3 options, right? And the question I have is the third option, the betterment clause. What's the time frame on that?
Okay,
When do we have to come up with like, and then, like I said, then I wanna have like a comment.
so, and these are all colored by money, how much money's needed. The betterment option, particularly to rebuild the road in a manner that, where you know it's gonna last.
Yeah.
That's a long process, that's 2 to 3 years probably, by the time you do the engineering and you do it right.
Or like, the question is if
Now,
we're just gonna patch it.
Shorter,
Yeah.
the shortest path between here and getting plowed for a winter or two
Yep.
is working with the two Marks, Mark and
Okay.
Chet. Having them, now that they can get back there in dry weather,
Yep.
paint it back out, getting some estimates to deal with the manholes, the structures, and deal with the potholes.
Cause what I would hate.
And then, this fall town meeting, or next spring,
Yep.
a bylaw
Yep.
that allows us to make repairs in private ways, and submits, subject to the thoughts of the select board, the special legislation to the legislature. That's this fall or next spring. Those have to be approved by the Attorney General.
Cause like you said, this
90
is-
days.
I think this is the concern of everybody in the room. What I'm concerned about is, let's just say hypothetically, right, the world of hypothetical, we all put some money down, each house puts, and we fix the road, right? And we don't have something in writing saying that. You know what I'm saying? Like, what happens if we put all this money into the road, I work with Mark, he goes, well, actually, we need to fix this pothole, so it's not completely done, so I can't plow you now.
So let's say we find a way to patch it together and it
Exactly,
only
the
buys
gentleman's
a-
agreement.
And it
as
only
it
buys a year.
Yeah,
My suggestion would be that working with the select board and perhaps some of the other you're not the only one in the town in this situation. You work on the betterment bylaw, we can, we can talk about that together. We work on the special legislation. That would allow the community 90 days, reasonable for AGs. So town meetings may, let's say 15, May. By Labor Day, the bylaw has been approved, assuming we've written it correctly, by the Attorney General, and assuming there was money available at the annual town meeting, we could do those repairs next fall.
alright, and then like the comment I have for the room is, I highly recommend that all of us, after this meeting, all discuss this outside, when we're not being audio and video recorded, kinda see what everyone's thinking.
Tell you what,
Should we have a 15-minute caucus to like,
you're welcome to stay in this room. TVs will be off. Just come get me across the hall, so I can lock the place up. If that's what you'd like to do, you're welcome to use
because
the
in my
room.
opinion, as a neighborhood, we should all talk together about our three
Sure.
options and what our best options are, because I grew up in the town of Webster, one of the most corrupt towns out of the 351 municipalities, and I know where this goes. So I've done my research on
But
the lawyer, so I know
Webster
exactly-
has their challenges,
Like I
as
said,
we
I
all
exactly
do.
know where this goes, and no one
As
in this
we all
room's
do.
gonna like where it's gonna go. I'm just telling you right now.
That's right. You're right.
So, we've had a suggestion that y'all stay here and caucus for a while. Happy to let you use the room. Is that something you'd like to do?
I didn't get an answer from
I'm sorry.
the 2005, as far as looking into what stopped it from going forward, and I didn't see anything. Do you know, is there a list, is there something?
What I'm told anecdotally is that two of the people that needed to sign off on easements refused to do it.
And that's it?
The record, that's what I'm told. The record did not reflect who those two people were, and the record does not contain all of the title exams and everything else, which is why when you got the Copeland and Page letter in there, Copeland and Page act as if the whole thing needed to be done from scratch. And my fear is if we were trying to do a betterment on the road, we could still be in that situation.
But I believe Ed Boucher, who had gone around in 2005 and done all the pinning and the survey work, he also had done title work as well.
I did not find that in the record unless you did.
I
You
did.
spent a lot more. So, again, just let me see what that is. Be happy to take a look at it. I know you and
I also have
the young lady down here spent a lot
bill.
more time digging through that
Did he
paperwork
survey?
than I had.
So do you know if there's like a paper survey of the road?
Well, that's the other thing, I couldn't find that, so I don't know where that ended up.
That
I would
have to be
actually, like to
I may
see
have
that.
a copy of one.
I still have it in his file.
You have Ed Boucher's one.
The surveyor may still have that in his files.
Well, that's what I was wondering.
I'll get together with you afterwards. We'll request if they can produce that for us. Or is that better coming?
Doesn't matter.
Okay. We'll make a request to the surveyor.
Wouldn't you be able to obtain that at the Worcester Registry of Deeds?
Only if it was recorded, but if you didn't take the road, there would have been no reason to record the survey.
It is amazing how many folks get variances, special permits, all kinds of things. It's one of the reasons why I've been encouraging Lori, and I think she's moved towards it, is that we record everything now. We get the fee and we record it because people don't record it otherwise. Lori, can we look at the subdivision plan, and get the name of that surveyor, and request them to produce a copy for us?
I believe he was from Royalston, if I'm not mistaken.
He's still very active, so it should be easy to get in
Okay.
touch with him.
We'll make that request in the next couple of days. Sure. Yes, ma'am.
What exactly are you bringing to the Board of Selectmen meeting tomorrow on our behalf?
I'm going to relay to them a thumbnail sketch of what happened tonight. A belief expressed by Lori, which was not contradicted by anybody, and certainly vociferously seconded and encouraged on by this gentleman, that it's the town's responsibility to move forward to try to accept it based upon all the things that happened. I'll lay that out there for them. I will tell them that we're going to try to better refine the repairs that need to be made, and we'll get you an estimate from a private party for that. The contract will be between you and them. Liability, we would have no liability for it. That's yours, we can't. I will bring back in front of them the Mass General Law, Chapter 40, Section 6N, determine if they're interested in proceeding down the road, on, no pun intended, down the line with such local bylaw. And I will share with them the special legislation that I've done for at least one other town, whereby when the money was repaid, it went into the fund. So there was, so that, what's the other one? Is it Ethier Circle? What's the other roadway we're dealing with right now? Do you remember Urban Circle? There's another road that has a red list.
Evans?
Evans Circle.
Evans Circle.
So that when one of the other 40 roads needs some assistance, or you need assistance again in the future, these monies have been paid into this fund as a revolving fund. That's what I'm gonna bring to them tomorrow evening.
I have that stuff from Ed Boucher, if you guys wanna make a copy of it.
Yeah, we will. Okay, so is there anything else that council, myself, the staff can try to answer for you here tonight? Did what I just outlined seem to capture what I've made a commitment to do in the next few days? In addition to seeking the survey. Okay. Would you like to use the room for a while? Sean, how quickly can we give them the room? Okay.
If anybody's interested, my email, my phone number, business cards right here, if anybody wants to contact me before the meeting tomorrow.
I'll be here
Email
for
me
a
anything,
little while
feel
if
free.
someone would just come
I'll
across.